And welcome back to the Awfully Irish podcast.
How are we getting on? Today we have a guest. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
I want you to introduce me. Damien Thomlinson. Aussie, the Awfully Irish podcast.
Welcome. It's an honour to have you on, sir.
Of course.
Thanks,
So, people may know you as a motivational speaker, and for being on what's it called again? Survivor.
Yeah,
the Australian version of that
Survivor
show.
Australia. Season 3, was it?
Yeah, season 3 had a champions versus contenders series on the show. So, it was good, man.
What was your experience like on that?
There was a couple of different levels of it. Like for me, I'm ex-military. I was Australian Special Forces for 8 years. I got injured in Afghanistan, and then I went onto the show, and you've sort of got like it is actually what it looks like on the TV. You are out in the bush. You're out in this. I'm not in the bush. You're on like an island. It's a tropical island in Fiji, so it's really funny. You put up like a little shelter thing for everyone to sleep under and all that sort of stuff. And we're around this campfire, which you could see from the moon. And people were like looking at me going, "So, Damien, is this what it's like in the army?"
Oh, Jesus.
And I'm like, you're looking, fucking no. There's nothing similar about it. Like literally, the only similarity is that we're outside. That's us. And, there's a fire that you can see from the moon. We've got shelters and stuff. And I mean, it was kind of fun, but best thing about the show, you get to hang out with a lot of people that have all got just these epic, amazing stories, and you have plenty of that time where you're sort of getting to know people. So you get to sort of talk to, there was an Olympic, winter Olympic gold medalist who'd just her story of how she got into the sport, moving from trampolining was phenomenal. There was another commando there. There was we had an astrophysicist.
Oh, wow.
He was brilliant. Pro football players that I grew up watching.
That must have been really cool.
Yeah, man, it was mad. The funny thing is when you're on the way there, you're not supposed to talk to anyone when you're at the airport. And I saw one of the guys who was the other commando I already knew. So we sort of saw each other at the airport and sort of gave each other a little sly grin. And we're like, "Yeah, you here for the thing?" And he's like, "Yeah." So already knew what was happening before we got on there. It was good.
Well, it sounds all right. You had all kinds of people there. Met some sound lads.
Yeah. They're either really, really sound or remarkably unbalanced.
Do you guys say sound in Australia?
Sound?
Like someone sound like they're a nice person.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really use it, but I'm pretty sure people do.
Fair enough.
It's very Irish slang kind of stuff. We use a lot of colloquialism and stuff we don't speak properly kind of people,
It's a bit of speaking gibberish and then say it enough and everyone understands it.
Yeah, I think we sort of try to follow. We try to follow suit with stuff like that, but we're still a little bit behind you guys.
That's fair.
Between you and the English, I think your ways of saying stuff are way wittier than ours. Sort of pick them up.
I could say Irish and Australians, they're definitely more ahead of sarcasm, witty than definitely the States. We're well ahead.
They don't get sarcasm at all, do they?
Oh,
you
God,
can
no.
literally. I've got friends that I've got on social media, and you write a sarcastic thing, and they're like, "I can't believe you think that." And it's so extremely out there that you're like, no one could possibly be serious saying that.
And then if
maybe
you say
somewhere in the
something
States,
completely weird, if you said that sound, they're going and they don't get that, man. That is going to be so hard to try to explain.
I think we said it in front of an American guest, and they were like, "What?
What? What? Do you have to hear them? Like, why?"
What do you mean it's sound? Isn't everything sound?
Yeah. What about deaf people? Isn't that discrimination?
Oh, Jesus Christ, man, you're gonna get us cancelled right now.
I don't think we've had a deaf person on. We've had a blind person on.
Yeah, we that's discrimination.
Anyway, trying not to cancel ourselves.
Oh fuck, that's a good one.
You could sit here and like slag the US at the moment for stuff that they're doing left, right, and center, couldn't you? I mean, I grew up loving the place, but at the moment, I now think like they should, anywhere they go, they need to be accompanied by an adult.
There's a group of Texans over in Ireland now on holiday. Yeah. Planes are coming in every 3 days, I think, from Texas.
Really?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
We're trying to get it stopped. We're trying to get. Oh, well, everyone else is trying. The government isn't trying to get it stopped.
Your borders would be. It'd have to be closed. It'd have to be some pretty strict restrictions over your way, wouldn't they?
They flew into Dublin and now they're in Galway.
It's so weird why they're out here.
They started out on the east and now they're in the west coast. They're in Galway, I heard.
What's it like in Australia? Like in terms of infection?
How was it closed? Internationally, there's still international flights landing, and you've got 2 weeks of quarantine if you land off any international flight, and that's a majority of the new cases that we're getting. But recently, there's been a cluster in Victoria, which is one of the southern states, kind of near where the island is, and they've started to blow out to a couple of hundred cases a day. So they've closed the border between New South Wales and Victoria. So everyone's basically closed just to that state, but you can kind of go everywhere else in Australia, and restrictions have lifted a bit. There's still some on, like they've reinforced you can only have like 15 people or whatever it is at a pub. I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on what the restrictions are now, but yeah, they're pretty loose. Like, yeah, in each of the other states. So it's just Victoria that's getting hammered at the moment.
It's pretty weird because we started this in quarantine, and throughout we've had loads of Australian guests on, and we have them over kind of time periods. So it's nice hearing how you're getting on to it. We had a guy on from, I think he was Sydney, wasn't it? Jaden Irving. He was on Australian Ninja Warrior.
No, I think they've all been from Melbourne except you.
Yeah, no, but it's kind of weird.
Ninja Warrior was it?
Jaden Irving.
Jaden Irving. Yeah.
Jaden Irving.
From Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw that guy. He's epic.
And then we have, who else have we got, Jared? We've had Georgia Benora, who's an Olympian.
Yeah.
We've had Steve Bastoni, who was in The Matrix. We've had, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot all.
Andrew Donald.
We've had
the blind archer, the nocturnal archer. He sees better in the dark.
Wow.
We've had, I can't think of him. We had that guy from The Hobbit, Stephen Hunter, who played Bomber in The Hobbit.
Yeah,
couldn't think of it.
He coached me at acting school when I was.
No way.
Like 5 years ago, he played Bomber. Yeah, he was one of the acting coaches at the Meisner School that I went to 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, or something like that.
Yeah, he's such a cool dude, I must say. It was really cool talking.
Sound man. Very happy we got to talk to him.
Oh yeah, I love talking to Australians because you're very much like the Irish and kind of down to earth kind of. We're very it's just kind of opposite of what you're very down. Yeah, it's down to earth kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Too seriously, yeah.
That's good. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So lads, are you comfortable talking about your time in the Australian Army?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
I guess go from the beginning.
Go from the beginning. I probably paid too much attention. We were talking about drinking before. I probably paid too much attention to that when I was a young fella. I got a bit excited when I was sort of in the last years of school and kind of found myself in a spot where I was looking for something different, what we could do. And I was at probably 20, I was 23 years old, and I was thinking that because I didn't get marks that were good enough to get into university, I was like, my life is over. That's it. I'm done. What can I do? Like, going to be working in a factory for the rest of my life. This is not the direction I want to go. And I was like went through army websites. My grandfather served, so I had a look. His picture was near me at the time. I looked at the army website, and then they had a role that kind of looked like something I'd want to do. It looked like it was a big enough chunk to chew. And it was a direct entry into the special forces side of things. And I, like, in sort of the way that I do it, I just looked at it and thought, yeah, I can do that. It should be all right. And it'd give me something to sort of work towards and change. Like, I sort of saw it changing all the bad habits that I was in. All the things I didn't like about myself. It was sort of the remedy for. So I started training then. I went off. I was successful in getting into it. There was a lot of work that happened through there, and I really liked the way that it was. And I'm a pretty competitive person. So you're up against, like, there were about 48 of us in the group that went through, and all of us were going for the same thing. So I think like 5 or 6 of us got through eventually. But I just like the fact that you're always competing against those guys, and competing against essentially a course to be able to be successful. So I like being in that whole time. And eventually you get to the unit, you get qualified, and I deployed to off the coast of Fiji. We had to do an operation before there was a coup there. Then East Timor, we did a trip to there, which is sort of a rite of passage if you enter the Australian Army. You do a trip there, but that was a fun one. It's a peacekeeping one. It's pretty sunny. It was nice. We had a good time. And then came back and we did like a bunch of different training and stuff like that, and prepared for our trip over to Afghanistan. And that was, that the trip's coming the whole time. Like, when it's your company's turn in rotation to go over there. So I kind of liked it. You with a whole heap of guys that are all gearing up for the same thing. And essentially that, with the way it was built up at the unit, that was the show. That was what you were there for, and you were actually getting utilized. So it was good. Like, I love it when training and anything's got a purpose. Like, it's got a really specific goal at the end of it. And that made so much sense. So, and it's one of the few places that I've ever been in my whole life where every single person is walking with a purpose. Every single person is doing something that's adding one more brick to the building that is that unit. It's a really good feeling, an inspiring feeling, to be around that sort of stuff. It takes you up a level to know that everyone who's around you is doing their best to take their game up a level, which, where I grew up on the central coast of Australia, which is just north of Sydney, about an hour and a half north of Sydney, the coolest guy was the lowest common denominator. You know what I mean? Like, if you were trying to be your best or work hard at something, or put that bit of effort in, you were kind of mocked, or you were the nerd or whatever it was, like it wasn't really the type of environment that people respected the fact that you were trying to do what you could to get an extra physical edge to make you better. And because everyone in that unit, everyone relies on the person next to them being better than them, putting that extra bit of work in the same as they are, that's what makes a functional team. I really like that because it really nurtures good habits. It nurtures people putting that extra bit of effort in, taking things that step further and seeing what they can really achieve personally. I really liked that environment, and especially the fact you can never relax, which is something that I noticed after the next incident that I hadn't relaxed in about 5 years. We were doing a job when we were in Afghanistan about, it was 4 weeks into the tour there. 4 weeks, yeah. And so we're doing like a night job, which is, essentially a raid on 2 compounds. My platoon were moving into an overwatch position, sort of sitting up on the hill, effectively supporting snipers. So there was like a spur line or group of mountains that overlooked the village that was still in range. The other platoon were walking on to target. And as we were driving up into position, you do what you can, like, to minimize risk. Like when you're out in a situation like that, minimizing and mitigating any risk that there are is sort of what you're doing the whole time. Because let's face it, you're playing for keeps. These are lives. You don't really get a second chance at that sort of shit. And so we're driving each other's wheel tracks. And I was the fifth car that we had, like, sort of not armored vehicles. They were like special reconnaissance vehicles, we call them. And I was the fifth one in, moving up to sort of veer off and support the position that snipers were moving into. And an IED went off underneath I was driving the car, and it was off in the front right wheel. And it blew my right leg off, like from basically halfway down my femur. My left leg was damaged and twisted and buckled really badly, but below the knee, I ended up being able to save it. My right arm, the top bone was broken, like the humerus, 2 bones in the wrist, 3 in my hand. My left arm was chucked this weird S-bend. My nose got shattered pretty badly, which is kind of a good thing because it was horrific before. I had a really bad nose. Now that we've got that, I mean, they said, do you want to have plastic surgery? I'm like, yes, I do, because my nose looks even weirder now. So, like, whose nose do you want? I'm like, well, that's easy. Just give me Val Kilmer's, and we should be good. And I mean, we didn't get it right, but it's still better than the original. And a couple of chipped teeth. Yeah. And so I kind of woke up in Germany, I think, was the first time I can remember being conscious.
Sorry, say that again. Where?
Germany. They've got a place called the Ramstein facility in Landstuhl, which is a US-run medical evacuation base. And I'm pretty sure it's the same place that the guys from the UK get sent as well. I spoke to one of the pilots from England when we were playing golf against them, he was awesome. He like righted a plane because his mate had fallen asleep and sent it into a nosedive. It broke his back, and he still somehow crawled up into the pilot's seat. Like Nathan Jones. I can't remember anyway. It's beside the point. But yeah, it's a German facility that's there that they I mean, for my parents, it was a real eye opener. They got flown across to see me there, and there was like they said, there was literally like it was like belt feeding guys through this facility that were all really seriously injured, because the war over there sort of became a guerrilla type thing. They knew, especially with guys that were armed as heavily as we were, they had to use different tactics to stay alive. They had to use really evasive tactics, and a lot of that involved IEDs, pressure plate style things. We're not 100% sure. We think mine was an old anti-tank mine. We're not sure. Something bought on the black market, just because of the way that the blast was sort of isolated in the car. It did a lot of damage to the front part of the car, but didn't blow up as if it was just a random explosion. It was kind of like a shape charge. But yeah, so I woke up, I think, in hospital in Germany, and like it was, I wasn't in the best mood, because I remember that one of the first memories I've got, they brought Stephen Baldwin. He came over and was doing this thing. And I really like Biodome. Like, I like heaps of the stuff that Stephen Baldwin's done. And I immediately just said, and now, how could it get worse? Now they send the forgotten Baldwin brother. Send this guy. So I started just ranting into him for no good reason. I love his stuff. I think he's hilarious. He's brilliant. But yeah, and then from there it was sort of the journey back. I can't really remember that as, like, time doesn't really start for me as a thing until probably 5 weeks later. You're still sort of in and out. And like, I took a really bad closed head injury. So it's just been trying to build that back up for the last 10 or 11 years. But yeah, that's, I guess, about it. I think from there you sort of, I mean, I was still in the army, which was it was cool, I think you got like everyone was pretty impressed with the way that I sort of bounced back. I mean, I was walking within 6 weeks. You know, I just wanted to get back and feel normal. So to feel normal, part of that, it's a big part of your life when you're in that unit is going to work and being at work. You know, being there around people and seeing people with that sense of purpose that are all working and doing stuff. And I kind of needed that touch of inspiration. So I was back at work within sort of, I think that the 2 month period, I was going back for 1 or 2 days a week and just trying to slowly rebuild and then readjust. You know, I didn't want to admit it to myself then, but at that stage, I kind of knew everything was always going to change. Whereas in my mind, I was still trying to tell myself that the only thing that's going to change is I was going to be doing the same job the same way with metal legs, which not too realistic.
Could you tell us a little bit about your prosthetic legs?
Yeah, well, I got an above knee and a below knee. The above knee is an X3, which is a microprocessor controlled.
Thomas, can you check that?
It's microprocessor controlled knee that the Americans got into bed with a group called Autobot to design. And yeah, it's got 5 days worth of charge and stuff like that. It's all entirely reactive, but nothing's proactive with it. It's not powered. It essentially works on there's a piston and a two-way valve. It's either open or shut. And so it can dampen things that you do, which really helps your gait pattern or the way you walk. And it's one of those things. It takes a while to get used to it. But I think the thing with prosthetics that I found difficult is the fact that you've sort of got to learn the hard way. Most things that go wrong with them, there's no prosthetist or professional that could really sit there and tell you what's happening or what the exact pain's going to be caused by or what it's doing. So you kind of go through this trial and error stage, which is really frustrating because it affects you every single step that you take. You know, so you're getting used to these new things, and then it's hurting for some reason. You don't know why it is, and you don't know how to fix that sort of thing. And I think with guys from my background and that sort of thing, you deal with solutions, not problems. So my whole mentality was, okay, let's find a solution to this. Let's find a way around what's happening here. What can I do to change the feel of stuff and things like that? So, I mean, I'm 11 years through it, and I think I'm starting to get a hold of it more. But I've noticed more as well the value of having other people, like other amputees, whether it's from the golfing world, that are athletes or something of that sort. Like I've noticed that talking to them really is a really, really essential part of having prosthetics. You know, I mean, it's sort of getting a different opinion from someone who goes through their own piece with it. So I went over snowboarding. I wanted to push for the first Paralympics. So I was snowboarding, and I had a set of legs made up for snowboarding, which had essentially a motorbike shock was my right knee. And I found it hard, like, racing against guys who were like racing with, because there was only like a lower body impaired category, which sort of meant that there's guys who were racing that have maybe lost like half a foot, which is pretty much a scratch. And I'm still racing with them with zero handicap. So it was hard sort of work doing it, but I pushed through. But I met some great people along the way that really, I guess, expanded my knowledge of the prosthetics world and what you do with it. But yeah, I mean, like my prosthetics now, I've actually got a set that I wear just to play golf in. Like I've got a knee set up and 2 little torsion twisting devices in the base, which give me sort of a pretty, I know, snowboard. Got it set up golf-wise, which is, I mean, it's pretty handy because I can change and do things with them, and they don't affect the ones that I wear when I walk.
I was checking out your Instagram earlier on. You play golf a lot, man. You're a big fan of it, are you?
Big golf head.
I love it. It's the Well, my folks always played it, so you kind of grew up with it. And I find the game, a lot of people that play it, they'll kind of go, it's a good way to ruin a good walk. But which I can kind of understand. I don't have to worry about that because I can't really walk in my golf legs. So I'm in a cart the whole time, so it just ruins a nice drive. But like there's a lot of things in the game of golf, like with, I don't know, it's just the way that I think I tick. When I was joining the army and seeing it, I saw things that I didn't like about the way that I was handling things, and the army was the remedy for that. I've sort of looked for something since then that fits, kind of mixes with the competitive side of things that I've got. Like I have to have something that I'm competitive with, and golf really fits that for me. You know, you can play it each week. Plus, the thing with PTSD, which I was diagnosed with a while back, is part of it's controlling it. It's the control that you have over emotion. And in the game of golf, you really have to learn how to sort that out. You know, if you can't completely drop the mess that happened on the last shot or how great the last shot was, you're not really going to do too well overall. You're thinking about the wrong thing, wrong swing thought when you get to the next shot. So it's become a battle of that. And I mean, where my handicap's at now, probably in the top 10% by the numbers of golfers in Australia, which to me is kind of a good thing. You know, I feel like I can beat 9 out of 10 able-bodied people that play, you know, and probably 8 of those guys are looking at me going, oh, look at that poor dude. Look at him. He's got his little metal legs. And I'm like, cool, dude, let's put money down.
Put money down. Let's go.
Yeah. But yeah,
so you definitely haven't let it stop you in any regard.
Pardon?
Like, I guess losing. I don't know how to phrase this in any way, to be honest.
Yeah,
I guess losing your legs hasn't stopped you in any way.
Yeah, it hasn't. It has.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like I think.
Go on. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think how to articulate my words.
Oh, far away, man. Say it. It's more fun if you say it wrong. So
Yeah, Jared, come on. This guy needs a good laugh.
No, it's just like it's kind of give you a bit of motivation to do other things to, I suppose, to keep going. Like you lost your legs, but you did a 60-mile long walk.
Dakota, yeah. I mean that was one of my friends, one of the guys he worked on me when I got hit. I think he was working on my right arm, which is a bit of a mess. There was a bone hanging out of it and stuff. His dad, he got killed just over a year after, on the 21st of June the next year. And his dad was talking to me and was explaining that he was about to get out of the army and he was going to do the Kokoda track. And I was just fighting back tears. You know, I'm looking at my mate's dad, who's always going to be looking at the empty seat across from the table at him on Christmas Day, where Scotty should be. I couldn't sort of get that thought out of my head. And he said, "Look, I want to do the track with you." And you know, I think I paused for a brief moment, but you know, I'll do whatever I can for Ray. You know, I mean, it's the way that I think our unit work. If I'm looking after the guy next to me, if I can't look after him anymore, I'm looking after the people who are next to him. You know, his family. And yeah, it was hard work. I mean, it hurt a lot, but what I'm sort of proud that we got out of it was Ray ended up starting a group called Families of the Fallen after that. And we lost 42 guys in Afghanistan. He's taken 20 low 20s. Don't quote me on the number, but so I think 21 or 22 families across the Kokoda track. since we did it, and it was, that was well worth it. I mean, I think both of us were still getting over the fact that what had happened had happened. So it was cathartic in its own way.
So it's a lot to process. We have an army, or we have a defence force in Ireland, and most people know someone from it, but Ireland doesn't get involved in a lot of conflicts across the world, so you never hear of stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean,
we're blessed in a way that we don't have those things going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those big things, isn't it? It's international politics, allies, and all that type of stuff.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's pretty hectic. I think my time in the army, I got to see things and do things that you just don't and anywhere else in any other job. I don't think I haven't traveled that much. I think I've been to a couple of different states. I've maybe been to Queensland. After my first year in the army, I trained or been to every sort of state in Australia. Travel became a thing. You got to see so many different things. I think it makes you a better version of yourself, and I really like the things that it ironed out, and some of the habits that it gets you into. It was really cool. And then, I mean, I'd never really looked at the whole, it could be dangerous if you go and do something. I know it's going to sound crazy, but that just never ever bothered me. I never really thought twice about that type of thing. And at the end of the day, to me, it seemed like a challenge. My job then is to be better, train harder, work harder, and be better than the guy whose sight's pointing at me.
Mm.
And I've always thought that if you have confidence in your own ability to do that, that should give you a pretty good chance of success. So and that was always the logic that I sort of took into it. How my chances of survival are increased. There's a direct proportion of how hard I work. How much harder I'm working than that guy. I mean, at the moment, when you said about playing golf a lot, I want to be the best adaptive or handicapped, all abilities golfer in the world. I know it sounds pretty extreme, even the extreme idea.
It's definitely possible.
I've kind of looked. I mean, I'm ranked about 150 in the gross now and 39th in the net. So with a handicap, because the guy I think who's number one's got arthritis, which I've got in my elbow. But yeah, we're kind of it's one of those things that for me to be able to compete at that level, I always think about this Mike Tyson video I watched when I was young, and it had him getting up at 4 a.m. and running because he knew that the people who he was going to fight weren't up at 4 a.m. running, and that gave him a mental advantage when he was doing it. The other day, 2 days ago, I was out in the range hitting balls in the pouring rain, and I literally had someone walk down with an umbrella and say to me, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, there's a guy he's a really good friend of mine, but he's the guy I chase. He lives in Victoria, so I've got an advantage over him now because they've just gone back to stage 3 lockdown, so he hit balls like it's going out of style. But I'm I'm doing something that he's definitely not. I'm working. If I'm grinding while he's not, I'm going to be, I've just got that mental edge when we play each other next because I'll know I've put in more work than him.
Mm.
I do archery, and it's definitely the same at the moment with people taking advantage of their competitors being in lockdown.
Yeah, with archery, do you find as the day goes on that the mental side of things, do you find when you get tired mentally, how do you work on that?
It's a good question. I don't get asked that question. For me personally, I want to have full confidence in what I'm using, so I'm going to just check my stuff. If I'm feeling down or I'm getting tired of what I'm doing, I'll check my stuff. I'll make sure everything I have is perfect. No dirt in anything, because that can change the flight, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I take 6 breaths, I time it over a minute, and I just really, really just empty the mind, back to square one, go.
Yeah, right. So you use like cleaning your gear as your reset.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm cleaning out the mind, cleaning the gear, back to normal.
Breathe, reset, get your heart in the original rhythm, and you're good to go.
Yeah. And it only takes a minute for the breathing. And it takes less than a minute to start the gear. So anyone can do it.
Yeah, right.
Golf and archery are very similar because we're both just doing some very simple movements, but over huge distances.
Yeah.
And you're adding in all these factors.
Yeah, and you've got like, I think as well that you've only really got to be focused for that short period of that huge amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, if you laser-like focus for the whole time, you're tired after 30 minutes.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, with your controlling your emotions about it. If I miss a shot and I get super pissed off, guess what happens with the next one?
Yeah,
I put pressure on myself. I have to hit this. I have to hit this. And you miss it again. Like, what? And you give up.
And it's so hard to hit. It's impossible to hit when you've got that pressure on you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, it's really strange. I found that with the putting side of things. You know, the more pressure you put on yourself, you end up forcing that bad habit out, this is going to be, it's a kind of offshoot of it. But when you're shooting in the military, we would do a lot of like the sort of close quarter battle target shooting style stuff that you do. You're under pressure the whole time. Like a lot of the training serials that you do, you know, they're designed to be safe, but still teach you to control your emotions under a high pressure situation.
Yeah.
You know, to the point where when you're shooting, you completely forget that you're dealing with something that's like as dangerous as it is. And you're so laser focused on where that shot's going and what it's doing that you can sort of be able to, I guess, block things out, which is kind of like, I don't know, I call it like turning up when the lights are on. You know what I mean? Everyone can practice putting, but can people practice putting if their house is on the putt? You know what I mean? Like, do you find with your archery that you'll train putting pressure on yourself so that when you compete, you'll be in a sit where if you're ever in that situation, you feel like you've been there before?
Well, it's hard to prepare I had to be under pressure first, because it's not a very active sport. Like, if it was an athletic sport, I could understand putting yourself under pressure. But archery, it's about taking your time, really. I don't know if it would be the same for golf. Do you get like a certain amount of time between each shot?
Oh, you get time. I think the thing with golf is the pressures are the ones that you put on yourself. Like you were saying before, there's like you'll miss a shot, and then next thing, if you get to the next one, and you're still thinking about that same shot, you're gonna have those little habits sort of surface. You're gonna pull the next shot, and then you're gonna it just puts more and more pressure on yourself. Like becomes a cycle of ending your day. It's I think it's really similar that when you've got that pressure, which let's face it, there is. If you're on like I was at the first comp I won this year, which was the Victorian Open. I won the net for that, and I had a putt on the last hole that when we were on the way to the green, I knew that I was close. Like I thought that I was pretty close, but I kind of needed that putt. I remember I looked at my mate who had taken down the caddy, and he just looked at me because we'd practiced we'd basically trained for a moment like that, and he just looked at me and goes, "The lights are on," and all of a sudden I was like, okay, so it was really easy because the amount of times on the practice screen that we'd created scenarios, like a lot of them based on similar to the type of work that Stephen Hunter was doing with his acting. You create these really high pressure scenarios. So in your mind, you believe that the putt that you're about to make has a really serious consequence.
Yeah.
And then, so by the time I got to that one, all I had to do was go through the motions of putting the ball in the hole, and I obviously ended up sinking the putt, but yeah, it was kind of, I think the work that we'd done on the way into it really made that part's so much easier because it took that stress away, which I think that the pressure that you put on yourself in those sort of things, because it's the only pressure you can have in archery or any shot that you've got in golf. The pressure that you've got is the stuff that you're putting in your own head. It's the same shot you play 1,000 times. And it's why some people, I think, play well on the range. You know, some guys can hit every single shot they want on the range. You get them out on the golf course and they go to water because there's pressure on it.
What do you guys call that? We call it target panic. You see a target and you panic, or you're in a competition environment, you panic.
Yeah, well, that's probably the best way I've heard say. I haven't really heard anything that sort of describes it, but now I'm going to use that if that's cool. I'm going to plagiarize the hell out of that.
Sure, perfect. Yeah, a lot of comedians talk about like bombing on stage, how it helps their career. I know with archery, missing a shot does a lot more for you than actually hitting the shot. Because you have to sit there, like you can only blame yourself. Like I don't care how expensive your bow is, how good your gear is. Like you're the only reason it missed. You're the only reason it hit. Aim it in the wrong place, it's gonna miss. Same with golf, like having the Lamborghini of a golf club compared to like, you know, coming out of a €2 set. Big difference, but it's down to the person.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that's why it's hard. Like that's my favorite bit about the game mentally, because it's only you that's made that mistake. You know, like if you're playing cricket or something, you can always have a really good ball.
Yeah.
You know, you can have a ball that you can just go, it bounced, you know, it cut weird, it hit a crack in the pitch, it did something. Whereas you got a golf ball that's not moving. It's literally just there.
Yeah.
And you got to make everything happen. So it's just you that can bomb. But I mean, it's a strange thing when you said about bombing on stage and learning as well. I mean, I've had motivational talks where I've done that have just been hard based on a few things. You get one or two lines, you deliver a part at the start that sort of gets you off on the wrong foot, and in your mind, you know you're on the back foot. And it's still worse because then you're trying to dig yourself out of being on the back foot, and you're just digging a deeper and deeper and deeper hole of like, how do I get this? How do I get out of this? Which
public speaking is pretty hard, especially when you do
very hard.
I used to do a lot of plays, and I used to be in like a little acting group. And I remember the first one I ever did. I was around 9 or 10, I say. And I had to do this. I had to do a little dialogue at the very start of it with this girl, and she like bombed one of the lines, but I was like not really paying attention and said the line which she was supposed to say, and the one after that, and it just sounded really weird. And it was like the very opening of the show, and the two of us were just staring at each other for like half a minute. It was like I don't know what to say. And then the producer's like at the bottom of the stage, and she's just like, just say the next line.
Yeah, keep going, make it look like it's supposed to happen.
I've had similar experiences with acting. I've done 2 different things where I forgot a line at least once. Did a pantomime, which is very difficult. You need to know the whole script and everyone else's parts of it. Yeah. And on the only day they recorded it, out of like I think the 4 days we did it, I had a line. I was in the middle of the story, so I knew the ending perfectly. I knew the beginning perfectly, but it wasn't too good in the middle. And it was after two nights already, and I thought like, okay, I don't need to study it again. I know what I'm doing. And then I go out on stage. I'm the only person who's able to talk on stage. I have a person who's dressed up as a horse who just neighs, and I completely forget a line. And I look down. I look down. One of the teachers is like shouting up the line, like trying not to let everyone else hear it. And I think the only major time I've had I think 3 or 4 lines ever. You were in Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Man, pardon?
Tell us all about that. That sounds deadly.
Oh, man. So I've been working at the acting school for probably 2 years, and I used to think that like acting was crying. I was like, you've got to be able to cry. That's what everyone seems to do. They get very upset and they scream and they yell, which really isn't acting, because people, you kind of trying to look like people, and people hide their emotions more than they release them. So, but it was still something that I wanted to do. I was like, why can't I make myself cry? Because part of 50% of me getting into acting, one reason why was because it was an itch I wanted to scratch. The other reason was I wanted to make sure that I could still feel emotions. I'd sort of had this moment where I was like, nothing scares me. No, I just don't feel like I'm feeling anything anymore. And then, so I was at the acting school, and I did a piece about Scotty, the guy from Kokoda, and I started crying when I was doing it. And it just happened. It was really an organic moment. And the teacher from the class basically said, he's this great actor called Aaron Glenane. He goes, mate, that was for your boys, wasn't it? And I'm like, yeah, it was. And he goes, I didn't know. He was on his third test for Hacksaw Ridge. I didn't know it was Hacksaw Ridge. I didn't know anything. He goes, look, you got to get your manager to call Nikki Barrett and let her know, that you want a screen test. She's got something coming up you might like. And I didn't know what it was. I just got sent through the sheet to go down and read for her. I rock up into the casting studio. I do the bit as one of the Bravo Company troops, and like an American accent, not too much, but you got to sort of take in 3 different choices and be well prepared for the bit that she's going to do. And then I get a call about, like, I had a really good chat with her. It was fun. And I get a call probably a couple of days later, and my manager goes, man, you got it. Well done. And I said, and he goes, your name's Ralph Morgan. And I'm like, okay, cool. And he goes, I don't think you really understand the gravity of this. Did she tell you anything about it? I'm like, no, she's an American troop. I don't know. And she goes, yeah, Mel Gibson's directing.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I'm like,
it's a big deal.
Yeah, I'm doing like the amputee happy dance on the beach at Coogee, which it just looks like a top-heavy version of a normal happy dance. And I turned to my girlfriend at the time, who was a lot younger than me. She was 21 at that stage. And I sort of turned to her and I just said, I got the part. I got the part in this film, and Mel Gibson is directing. She's looked at me and gone, who's she?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Man, we're 18. Come on. And you're saying...
Yeah, it's fucking Braveheart. Like, seriously, how can you not know? Wow. But yeah, it was funny because we got there and we were shooting. His son was on set as well. And I said, should I tell him? Like, that's pretty funny. He goes, yeah, tell him. But wait till he's in a good mood. And I'm like, yeah, cool. But yeah, no, he was great. The experience on the film was awesome. Like, everyone just being part of it. You got Vince Vaughn, and this was my first film. I'm like, how this just blew my mind that there's Australian talent just everywhere at the film. Like, I mean, Hugo Weaving was trekking around set. His son was on it. Harry, Frastrani Benmingue. There was just all of these amazing Aussies that I've watched in so many different things. And we rocked up the first day of like a boot camp thing that we had. And the guy who was teaching us, I'd worked with on a domestic counter-terror thing in the Special Forces in the Army.
Oh, wow.
So I already knew the guy who was training us. So he's walked up and sort of started yelling at everyone when they're doing things. And I've kind of walked, hey, John, how you going, mate? So he walks over, shakes my hand, and everyone's like, okay. I mean, I think that made the first week a bit easier. You were the soldier and they were all training to be soldiers. So, yeah, it was really cool. I mean, probably the coolest 6 weeks I've had almost ever. I mean, you don't see how those things unfold is just, you know what I mean? The sequence that we did as well, where we had a meeting with Mel about a week after I knew I'd been cast, and we go into the room and one of the producers was sitting there with him, and they sort of said to us, he goes, look, and I knew that what he was going to ask. I'm like, this is going to be the, can we show you with your legs blown off?
Oh, Jesus.
I'm like, well, hey, I'm happy to pay that price. So I kind of like knew my answer was going to be yes. And they're like, how comfortable are you? And I'm like, as long as Andrew Garfield gets the best performance that he can out of this, I'm happy to go as far as we need. And yeah, we had like when I was doing it, I always, like I said, I found it really hard to scream and cry, but that was for part of it. I knew we had probably 4 hours of laying on the ground, just screaming and crying to try and get the right sort of shot, because you don't do it just once from one angle. You've got different camera placements and positions that go around, and you know, so it was one of those things. But the first day we got, like, it got me in the prosthetics and stuff that we had and all the makeup done and that. It started raining that afternoon. And like Mel's walking past, and you could, you know, he's a really loose, happy guy on set. He loves it. He's just he's a pleasure to be around. And I kind of looked at him, and it took every ounce of effort I've got to not say that line. Like, well, we didn't get dressed up for nothing. Like, do the whole line to him. I'm like, in my mind, I was like, say it. No, don't say it, you idiot. Are you kidding? Like, what are you doing? So I had that moment. I'm still glad. To this day, I'm glad that I didn't say that to him. But the thought crossed my mind. Imagine how much someone like that
hears it.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
I should have warned you, man. You know Mel Gibson watched this podcast, right? Yeah, I'm an avid fan of the podcast. Contacts the whole time, you know.
It doesn't stop, you know. He texts me in the middle of the night asking if he can be on it, and I've said, Mel, will you stop?
Just calm down, Mel. Just relax. Surely you've got stuff to do.
We're like, you made Daddy's home too, man. We're not proud of you. We don't want to be friends with you.
You took it a step too far.
So that was the thing as well. My manager's he's Jewish, and he's come out as there's obviously been some friction between Jewish people and Mel over the years. So as when we're talking about like the premiere and red carpet event and that sort of stuff, the manager's like, oh, I'm gonna wear my kapua. I'm gonna wear dude, really? I don't know. I don't buy much of the stuff that media say. Like a lot of that sort of hype, I don't really buy into that much. So yeah, I kind of judge. I would judge Mel on the person who I met, not on what someone who I've never met has written about him. You know, and he was one of the funnest like bosses or people I've worked with. He's just a fun-loving guy who I really like people who are passionate about what they do. And when watching him direct and do things the way he does, it's just inspiring in general, you know, to see someone do that. Like, it was just, yeah, which I mean was good as well. Like, you watch the actors, these just world-class actors just killing. Like, Andrew Garfield was just magic to watch that guy create what he did in front of me. It was just brilliant.
I think that's really cool as well when actors, they're completely unlike their characters, because it just shows how good of an actor they are. I mean, Hugo Weaving, he's been some horrible people in movies, and this terrible guy. I say he's probably like the nicest dude you'll ever meet, kind of stuff.
Do you think Keanu Reeves can really go around snapping necks like that?
Yeah.
John Wick style.
That's like a perfect example, man. Keanu Reeves is like the nicest dude you'll ever hear about, and yet, like,
yeah, people love him. Steve Pistone told us stories of dragging him out of strip clubs at God knows what hours. He was shit-faced.
Was he still nice? Was he a happy drunk?
I assume so, yeah. They said he was great crack.
He's like that, isn't it? It's like the guy can walk on water. Every single story you hear is just a great one of him doing something cool. Like, I saw something about him the other day that's got him like standing up on the subway for a lady to sit down with shopping, you know, like all of those type of things. And
takes the subway to work. Like, how?
What was it? I mean, the funny thing is, like, I don't know many people, like many good people, that wouldn't do the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not taking away from it. It's an amazing thing. But like, do we look at it differently of not expecting someone who's as talented and as amazing as Keanu is? It's kind of odd that we clap people like that for doing things that we would expect.
I think it's because just because you see him in films and you associate films with you being rich and this guy, he's supposed to be a millionaire, kind of thing. And yet he doesn't. He like donate like all of his money to charities and stuff. And it's just it's so rare you hear someone like that in Hollywood or up that high that you kind of just go, Jesus, this guy, he's normal.
He's one of us. He's a normal person. Oh my God.
That
kind of thing.
That's the thing, right? I've noticed in all the people that I've met, and I've gone through I think in the last 10 years, I've been really fortunate. I've got to meet just thousands and thousands of amazing, wildly successful people, and I haven't really met anyone that's at that real top end of the tree, that's right at the pointy end of what they do, that has been an asshole.
Can I ask you a question about that, though?
Yeah.
Meeting all these really successful people and these top tier of, I guess, the social list, whatever. How has that affected you? Because we've had a similar experience. I'd love to hear how it's affected you.
I mean, for the first part, it was a little bit. It was kind of intimidating because I was, I'm just the soldier who lost legs. In my mind, I'd just done the same thing that I think anyone else would do. I lost legs and then I just wanted to keep on living and doing things. I've tried to do them as close to what I did before as possible. But then you've got people who we're in a different stratosphere. And I think I learned with time that the only person who they want to speak to is the same person that I want to speak to when I speak to them, which is just them. I kind of want to know who they are or how they go about it. So it took me a little while to really adjust to speaking to people like that or it's a really weird way of saying it, but people who are at that level, I think, it had a positive impact because for me, I think a lot of my life, especially when I was young, I had a bit of a chip off my shoulder. I had something to prove. And every single person who is at that tier has absolutely nothing to prove. They've already done it. And it shines through in their behavior. And that was the thing I think that was a really good check for me to go, you just look at it and go, why are they're so down to earth and so cool with everything. They do have absolutely nothing to prove. It's awesome. So I don't know. What did you think about it?
We've met some pretty cool people doing this pod. We talked to Charles Baker from Breaking Bad. He played Skinny Pete.
Yeah,
that dude is
awesome.
So cool. Jesus, man, he's such a cool dude, and he had such a bad kind of childhood, and he made something of himself. He was told
he didn't mean to, but he gave us a motivational speech on the podcast, and people have really appreciated that.
That's mad.
And I don't think you realize you've done it today, but you did the exact same thing. And people are going to appreciate that a lot. These stories help so many people.
Yeah, see, that's one of the things I never sort of thought. I think because you never see something the same from the inside. You know what I mean? To me, it's just, that's the way it is, and that's how I think about things. And then, I never really look at, but I'm going to definitely listen to that guy's podcast now because I'm so interested in what he has to say. It's weird. I see the same things in other people's inspirational stuff, but I never see mine as inspirational. I think because you just see it for the meat and potatoes it is. And I think I've met so many people that have these amazing stories that you literally get humbled every day by being able to listen to them. And there's something that you can genuinely take out of nearly every single person that I've ever met, I think, has got something that you can take something really positive away from. It's an odd one. And that's the thing, when I first started getting into the side of motivational speaking, Australian audiences really don't really respond well to the same type of hoorah pump up that United States audiences will be into.
Same with the Irish. We're very...
Yeah, it wouldn't work here.
No.
Yeah, you sort of got to let people make their own decision with things, you know, and find motivation through what's happening in their own sort of channels. You know, leave it open and give people the option of finding what they want as opposed to forcing it down their throats. It was really interesting when the words motivational speaker to me didn't make sense. I'm like, how? Like, one, how's it motivational? I got blown up and can walk again. Is that work
Yes,
slow?
no, I don't think you understand how big a deal that is. Like, you had some gnarly things happen to your body in that explosion, and you got right back up.
Yeah, I guess it is a bit. Yeah. But I think it's so different. Like, because my mind, when it first happened, you kind of, I honestly wasn't, because I think it's different with all the people who get injured, say you're riding a motorbike and a car takes a bad turn and it takes a leg. You've got all these questions of like, why me? What could I have done differently? Could I have changed anything? In my situation, I don't think there's anything that I could have changed, or there's maybe one command call that could have been made different on the night. But ultimately, it didn't really make a huge amount of difference to the impact it had on me. So I never woke up and had the why me, you know, like pretty dangerous job, bad things can happen. I survived it. That's pretty good, you know. So
pretty cool, man. Well done.
Yeah, and I was like looking down, going, all right, cool. Now, how do I walk again? I just want to be able to walk to coffee and let's get some stuff done. I was kind of actually happy that I was going to get to sleep. Like,
I think that's what a lot of people do, though. It's what you just didn't do. Is people look back and regret decisions and stuff like that, or they say, you know, that whole what could I have done better? You know, what could I have done worse? Jared's camera turned off, and he's going to be thinking, you know, if it doesn't turn back on, why did he kick me off the fucking podcast? Can't believe I'm gonna have to fire 2 employees in one night. This is great. Oh, there you are, Jared. You decided to join us again. How nice. Can I have your resume on my desk tomorrow morning?
You know what? I'm gonna flip it. You're actually fired.
Oh, fair enough, man. That's grand. I hate this fucking job. Hey, man, it was nice meeting you. Well done, you know, on everything. And no, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna go back to meeting all these successful people. Before doing this podcast, the most famous person I met was Thomas. Do you know Paul Mescal?
I do know Paul Mescal. Yeah, I do know him.
From Normal People. I had the privilege of saying, "What's the crack?" to him, not knowing he was a big actor at all. He wasn't at the time. He was from Normal People. He was like, this is his first big thing. He was a theater actor before this. I said, "What's the crack?" to him. He gave me a little bit of nod, and because I was an extra in the show, and then like ages after he becomes like huge guy, I'm like, well, I had the privilege of saying, "What's the crack?" to that guy. But now, like, doing this podcast every single day for the last 60 something days, we get to talk to all kinds of people like who've done some amazing things.
Go on, Jared.
Not just actors.
We all know you want to tell him, man. Tell him. Jared has matching trilobites with one of his favorite paleontologists. He met the dude who they based Alan Grant off in Jurassic Park. Jack Horner, he's a paleontologist, and Jared pulled that out and was like, "Oh, check out what I have." And Jack Horner was like, "Oh, give me a second," and they have matching ones.
Oh, yeah.
Jack Horner is a very interesting character because he wants to use genes that already exist in birds to bring back the dinosaurs. So, because birds are dinosaurs. So he wants to use the chicken because we know the most about chickens than other birds. So he wants to give it a tail. He wants to give it teeth, a snout, and claws. And he is only, when him and his team are only one step away, the tail. That's the only problem they're having. And they've been doing it for about 15, 20 years.
We live in the future.
You could get a pet dinosaur chicken. Like, how cool is that?
Jesus, man. Like,
Thomas,
no,
could you look it up there, the dino chicken?
Yeah, of course, man. You're gonna love this, man.
I don't know what it is, but doesn't part of it scare you? Like, I mean, I know that movies definitely aren't reality, but
Yeah,
work out too well in Jurassic.
this is it, man. Dino chicken.
I
That's
think
why.
the one in the middle row on the left is the most accurate representation.
This one.
Yes.
Yeah.
It literally, no matter what they do, it's just gonna be a chicken with a tail and claws and a snout and teeth. Like, no matter what they do, it's gonna be a chicken still.
How big's it gonna be? Can you eat
Size
it?
of a chicken. Tastes like chicken.
Oh, to be like a dinosaur.
Yeah. How cool is that? And we got to talk to this guy.
Yeah, he's pretty fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
How do they? Yeah, the DNA. That sort of stuff blows my mind.
It's like kind of like recessive genes, like, you know, or not recessive genes. I'll say recessive genes. It's like, you know, humans can be born with tails because we came from like monkeys that had tails.
Yeah.
It's like every now and then a kid's born with that. Okay, well, let's find a chicken that has something prehistoric, whatever, or let's find what gene is responsible for this. Let's activate it. Okay, we've given it claws. Okay, now what? We want to change its leg bone. Okay, leg bone's done. Size, boom. You know, they're looking for things that would be more useful to dinosaurs than birds.
Yeah, right. I mean, see, that stuff, I did a bit of research into what's available for that with humans. Like I was dating a microbiologist when I got injured, and she was telling me about the different things they could do to grow skin in the laboratory, like in basically the single cell. They couldn't layer things or something of that sort, but being able to program blank cells, you know, and that type of stuff.
Stem cell research?
Oh yeah, the skin grafting and stuff like that. Yeah. That has come a long way now. They can pretty much
being able to do it in a lab from nothing, and now stencil things that are made out of like basically create cartilage. So they've done that ear. They've attached an ear to like a mouse.
Yeah.
And then some of the different
Dolly the sheep.
Dolly the sheep. Yeah, Dolly. Yeah, the cloned sheep. So they were talking about that, and I was like, I wonder whether they could find a way to transplant my brain into a completely healthy version of me.
Didn't what you call it? Isn't Elon Musk doing something kind of similar?
He has the microchip kind of thing.
Not that you can like download your consciousness. It's like just it's like a start. You can.
He has the mic. Yeah, he's working on the microchip thing for your.
It's like having your phone in your brain.
Yeah.
What's it called again?
Download yourself to a network. I'm pretty sure.
You think it's Skynet, but it's not that. Elon Musk, Neuralink.
Microchip. That's it. Yeah, the Neuralink.
And did you see he just took over like on the Forbes rich list? He just slayed Warren Buffett.
Yeah, he did. This dude's fucking scary, man. Like,
very intelligent guy.
Oh yeah.
Very cool guy. Weird choice of name for his kids, but or for his most recent kid.
Isn't that so weird that you'll be able to like have the internet in your brain? I mean,
wait till you get pop-ups.
Honest to God, man. That shit would be so fucking irritating. Could you imagine? This site is sponsored by,
It's just, I mean, at that stage, bud, I think it's starting to get. It's almost scary. Like I'm reading this book at the moment called *Sapiens*, and it breaks down the different species of human. You've heard it? Yeah, I'm about probably a quarter of the way through it. It's really, really good because it breaks down how civilization started and everything the impact that humans have had on the earth. And it's a really objective look at meat and potatoes, how we've impacted Earth. And like when you start thinking about the crux of what we are, but then how different sapiens are to every single different animal that's on Earth, and then you start adding the machinery sort of function to it. Just, I don't know. I like those things. They're good. It takes my mind to a different spot. But then when you start putting it into the context of what like Elon Musk's looking at doing with attaching computers to it, I always fall into this weird world of going, imagine if humans are just the most refined computer that's happened so far. Like they found a way to make a computer completely organic, not require any metal parts, because every bit of conductivity that it's got is based on the moisture that happens in your system. So we've essentially created a computer system that's living. So we're essentially the Terminators of the Skynet story. Like,
That's a pretty terrifying jump.
Yeah.
yeah. And then when you think about it, us trying to put microchips in what we're doing, I mean, when you think about it, it's completely possible. If you had computers, television, every type of technology that we've got now that can essentially can break down over time. If we take books away and writing and only have it by electronic base, and then you wipe that system, all of a sudden people would have absolutely nothing to go back to. Do you then have?
This is one a bit unique to you. Didn't you say earlier, like, there's motors inside of your prosthetics?
Yeah. It's got a combination in it. Like, it's got a microchip and a microprocessor with sensors in the knee and in the stem above the foot, which tell it where it is. And it's got a gyroscope, like the thing that turns your phone vertical to horizontal in it. And that basically tells where your foot is during your gait pattern, that can sort of make the knee and the pressure that it puts on it adjust.
So you're a cyborg. Actually, no, I wanted to look this up before I said it. Yeah, if you have bionic prosthetics, you're considered a cyborg.
Am I? That's awesome. Putting that on a business card. Am I?
Professional cyborg.
Yeah.
Well, I looked up exactly if you have prosthetics, are you a cyborg? And the answer was yes.
I don't really. See, I think if
Says
you've
you're
got
fictional.
it's osseointegrated. You'd be a cyborg because your bone is connected to the machine.
Yeah.
Mine, I can take the machine off. So I'm an armchair cyborg. I'm like a weekend cyborg.
You don't exist, bro. Fictional. Get out of here. This interview never happened.
Nice. We're just going to finish up with talking about your motivational speeches and what you normally say to people at them.
I mean,
And then maybe a motivational message for the audience as well.
Yeah, well, the motivational talk that I give is based on principles that we serve by in the special forces. There's team, not self; confidence, not arrogance; toughness, not fitness; and integrity above all else. You know, it's based on those sort of aspects, and I give essentially a parable that tells a story through my life and how it applies to how, I guess, basically putting into practice how those principles have affected and changed the way that I look at things and how I sort of look at the future. And I mean, like, you put it into the context of now as well. I mean, everyone's perfect when the ball's bouncing their way. You know, we're all great at it. You know, it's moments like now that I think, especially with COVID, with everything that's happening worldwide, everyone's got the chance to to step up and take it on the head and go, okay, so now's my time to shine when the ball's not bouncing my way. You know, and learn. And I'd encourage everyone to learn something about themselves from it. You know, I don't think you have to learn a different language. I don't think you got to study a new university course. The only thing that everyone has to do through this entire situation that we're in is survive, learn something, and come out the other end. And when you think about it that way, you do what we were talking about before when it comes to your archery or my golf. You take that pressure off yourself. And when you take the pressure off yourself, you really give yourself the chance to perform at the highest possible capability you have.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Yeah. No,
Sure. Sure, man. Yeah.
what kind of reactions do you get when you start talking this stuff?
Well, it depends. I mean, there's people. They generally stand and clap at the end of it. That's pretty much it. What I like.
Ovation. That's
good. I mean, it's the feedback more than anything that I get a big kick out of. You know, I get a big kick out of, say, a part of someone will send me a message like, you know, hit me up on Instagram or through Facebook or something of that sort and just say, like, this affected me in that way. I thought about when you were in this situation that you were talking about in the speech, and then I looked at what I was doing and how to think about it. And that to me really makes what I've been through worthwhile, and that's the reason why I share it with people. I think it would be, for me not to share what it feels like or felt like for me personally to be in the situation that I was in. I think it's kind of doing a disservice to everyone. There's no point me having the knowledge or knowing what something like that feels like without telling people or giving them that, so that not everyone can at least have a look at it and take out what you want. Take that good bit out of it. See, so this is what it feels like or looks like to be in that situation. It's kind of one of those take it or leave it. But when you're imagining what it's like, this is just someone explaining what they see it as.
Yeah. I guess everyone's going to get their own meaning out of your talks or your experiences. Like,
I mean,
even
if it's a positive one, you know what I mean? Even if it's well, I wouldn't do it like that. Like, what was that guy doing? To me, it's still someone gaining something out of the fact that I've been through it, even if it's just like, oh man, that guy's a fool. I wouldn't do it, and I would do it anything like that. So, or yeah, I mean, there's, and I think that's one of the great things about it. You kind of, and any type of actor or person who's speaking about that, a lot of it is basically putting what you can on the table and then letting someone make their own decision about it. And being vulnerable enough to throw it out on the table, I think is one of the braver things that people can do, because it's hard to do. People are so guarded their entire life. So to me, it's kind of a study in stretching the limits that I think are possible by being able to open myself up and be vulnerable enough to not only say the things that I think have gone well, but things I could have handled better, how I could have changed different parts of what I'm doing, and how I think it's made me grow as a person, right or wrong. So, and I think that it is a super powerful thing that I respect a lot in other people, is being able to be that vulnerable and show just that raw side of yourself, be exactly who you are. I haven't met many people that I really don't like or truly I have a distaste for, that are solely themselves. I find it a really likable trait to look at someone and go, that's who that person is. I don't have to agree with everything they say, but if someone's being themselves, I can definitely respect that.
Definitely a respectful quality. And one that's actually not too common at the moment. People always want to be giving off this image that isn't them.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot, when it came to me, I felt a lot, like in a lot of interviews that I would do, I felt the weight of the Special Forces community or the Australian Army on my shoulders in how I was presenting myself and what I was doing. And I sort of got lost in a lot of that type thing. And I just hit a stage where, and I look at there's so many things out there that are just this false perception of faith, but it's essentially what needs to be done. An Instagram influencer has to take photos the way that they do to make that world work, to get those views, to do things that way, and I guess it's that thing, being able to separate that from the reality of who a person is and what they do, which I think that's a really positive thing I got out of seeing some of those people that are successful, especially in the entertainment world, because, they do what they do on camera. That's their catchphrase. But behind that, that's their job. It's the same guy who's going to sit down and you're going to talk about a game of football or talk about something else with him,
Yeah.
Lads, I think we've done it. We've made the perfect podcast. Thank you so much for getting on
today. If it was perfect, you wouldn't come back tomorrow.
Yeah. I suppose you have to keep going.
This is going to make it so much easier to fire Dara now. Thank you. Because he's not here and it was perfect.
No, seriously, thank you so much for getting on and sharing your story.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
I know you do it a lot, but I wouldn't know if it's like a big deal for you to talk about these things.
I I kind of like it, man. Like I said, for me, it's talking to anyone about it. It's a pretty out there story. Even when I hear bits of it back, when I've done something, like besides critiquing myself and going, oh my god, it sounded like that then, really. But I sort of listen to it and I'm like, it's kind of got a lot of interesting things to it. And I think on the same hand, as we all need some form of motivation at some times, no matter who you are. So sometimes when I get to do things like this, I get to like remind myself, I guess, of where I've come from, and then have that little moment of going, okay, I can hold my head up because I got put in a fight and I stayed in the fight. I didn't run, which is that's amazing, and that's one of the reasons why I like doing stuff like this, and it's really cool to be able to share that with other people. I think it's good.
Like you don't think it's a big deal, or well, you probably to a certain level you do, but you said earlier you don't think of it as such a big deal, but for other people it's huge.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things. Like it's sort of, I hate using the phrase "it is what it is," but it sort of is, and you get used to it so much, that it's just the way stuff is for you. And I found, but with my situation, it's not until someone's going out of their way to make something hard that I really notice how many of those little things irk me. You know what I mean? It's really, really a really odd one. But yeah, it's only when someone does and they're sort of like, you get frustrated with something. You're like, well, I have to get out of bed into a wheelchair to go and do that. I'm pretty sure, that because I had a really weird convo on Twitter. Our Prime Minister went to the football, like the rugby league, which he's allowed to do in the place that he was on a Friday night, and Twitter did, like, the news over here just literally lit up at him. Like heaps of people just throwing stones at the guy, and I'm like, he's had to deal with bushfires in a pandemic. If he wants to spend 2 hours at the footy, let him go.
Something like that happened in Ireland, actually. Do you remember that, George? Where our Taoiseach, or it's like our minister, first minister, he was seen at where he lives. It's called Phoenix Park, but this is a massive thing, and he was out, and he was like he's gay, and he was with his boyfriend and his two friends, which at the time was allowed. You're allowed to be out.
Yeah, that was totally fine. You're able to do that, no problem.
Yeah, but like people were like, oh, that's him with their sunglasses.
What's he doing out here, basically?
That's him in the sunglasses, and people were absolutely ripping into him for it, man. And he gets a lot of shit, and
he does get a lot of shit.
I'm not the biggest fan of him, but to be honest, man, leave the guy alone. He did an all right job, I guess.
Yeah, he's not our prime minister anymore. But
see, the thing that blows my mind about it in Australia right now is that going through the pandemic, everyone who's been locked down and done different things has. And I've done a fair bit of work around that side of things because it's not my first time being locked down. Like most of the time, other times I've been seriously injured or just had an operation or something of the sort, and the whole world's still operating around you. At that time, sometimes it feels unfair, but when everyone's locked down, you're kind of all in the same storm. You're obviously not all in the same boat because some people's boat's nicer than others, but you're all in the same storm. So it's sort of one of those things. But now Victorians are trapped inside their house. They're back on a full lockdown, and the Prime Minister's at the footy in a different state, so everyone's blowing up about it. Yeah. I look at it and go, when we're all in the same storm, everyone started to talk about mental health and how important it was. If you ask me, our Prime Minister's mental health is serious. It's a really important thing. That dude makes decisions. He makes lots of serious decisions. I want him in the best headspace possible. If that means he's got to watch the footy and spend 2 hours there to wind down, I'm fucking
watch the fucking footy. Who's gonna say come on?
let him chill out for 5 minutes so that he doesn't try and push one of the red buttons. But it becomes a full thing. It's really.
I don't think people are understanding how big Australia is.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to split it into its different states, a lot of those states are way bigger than European countries. So if he wants to do it in the state where it's okay, just let the guy do his thing.
Yeah, I mean, there'd been 2 recorded cases, I think, of COVID in New South Wales, like in the week prior or something like that. There'd literally been nothing. There's social distancing, everything was good, and it lit up. But that was the sort of argument I was making with people was like, we talk about people's mental health and everything else and how important it is. Why is it any different to him?
Yeah,
he's still an Australian. He's still got the right to be there. Like,
and it's often the same people who'd be preaching it will be the ones ripping into him.
Yeah. Oh, mental health. Yeah, it's definitely the hard done bys, I guess. I don't know. That's kind of stereotyping him a bit, but yeah, I kind of found it was just absurd to me that the argument was happening. I get that everyone's got to slag the Prime Minister or whatever it is, but like the guy's it became an argument about whether he had been through a lot as Prime Minister, and I can't remember the last time someone had the bushfire crisis that we had, followed by a pandemic. Like, it doesn't mean I'm a fan of him. It doesn't mean I'm literally like hoping that ScoMo turns up at my house for coffee. But the guy, like, I can't remember any other Prime Minister that's had to deal with two things like that in 6 months. Like, the pandemic's unheard of. The amount of things it's done, it's stopped the world like nothing we've seen in our lifetime.
Yeah, the last thing like this was the Spanish flu, and that's
like 100 and something years ago.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
You were right in Victoria. Were you directly affected by the fires?
No, I wasn't. They came up. So I'm New South Wales. So I'm in New South Wales, but they came up close. Like the whole sky it was really eerie. Like the sky was this weird yellowy, sort of orangey color. You couldn't see the sun through all the smoke. It was really weird. Like I've got a little young baby girl. She's gorgeous. But we had to have all the windows and everything shut and the aircon on in the house so that it filtered smoke out of the air just to try and look after her little baby lungs. It's
awesome.
Just, yeah, I mean, it was hectic. And the amount of things that were happening with it. But it was one of those things as well. Like people started then pointing the blame game at people. Why weren't they backburning? Why wasn't this happening? Why didn't this do this? Why didn't that do that? And you're like, sometimes when you're in a crisis or something's difficult, you've just got to accept the fact that it's going to be dog shit.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard. It's going to suck. And it's probably like 99% of the time, it's not going to be fair. It's not. That's part of being in a crisis. It's part of being, once you accept those little things, then you can start thinking strategically of how am I going to work my way out of this? What's the damage going to be? And what moves have I got to take to either minimize the damage that I take on board and then maximize my efficiency on the way out? Like, and that's just, they're the types of, I think, mentality that are helpful for people. Whereas pointing that blame, like I was saying when I first looked, there's no point pointing blame at anything because it just takes my mind away from what do I need to think about. What's the real problem at hand? The problem is my legs aren't there anymore. I now need other things to work in their place. Just expend all of your energy. It takes a lot of energy, I guess, to work with prosthetics. If I expend that hating on something, I'm just wasting my energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just blows my mind that people would rather whinge about it than go, okay, cool, we're in a crisis, we're there. Let's stay in the pocket.
Let's be patient.
Fight out, do what we can. Let's do absolutely everything that we can in the process. One thing that was awesome through it, but we've got this an Australian, she's an Instagram influencer and a comedian. She put up a post trying to raise like $20,000 or something.
Oh, I heard about this one. I've heard about her. Yeah.
$57 million.
Yeah, and
and I think that was kind of cool. That was a really cool moment to be Australian. To just go, this is what Australians are doing. Everyone's willing. I mean, I donated a couple of hundred something to it. Just to go, I'm part of the group of people that, help that. They, I guess, put their hand in and go, okay, we're all in this together. Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's been a tough year for you guys, definitely.
Yeah, you guys have had it pretty damn bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Prime Minister should get to go to the footy.
You know what? Let him go to the footy.
Let him do it.
His team are awful as well. Like they're terrible.
That poor guy.
Yeah. Well, there are immediate rivals too. I lived in the eastern suburbs. So I'm a Sydney Roosters supporter, so they kind of live across a little body of water type thing from us. So they're the. I'm not going to say it.
If people want to check you out and they want to follow you, where can they find you?
Just my name, Damien Thomlinson, on Facebook or Instagram. If you're interested, I mean, it's yeah. Well, hopefully there'll be something else cool that pops up that I take a part in.
Do you have anything coming up soon? No.
No, just trying to survive lockdown. So,
well, if he does that, lads, you'll see what he's doing next.
So yeah, that's sort of the thing. I mean, if you're interested in it as well, yeah, all the golf and stuff like that, everything that I'm doing with that, slowly grinding my way, hopefully to the top of that. That'll all still.
Yeah, you're doing pretty good.
Facebook's fine.
And good luck with everything in the golf man in the future, man. You do great. You know.
Did you write a book?
Yeah. I wrote a book called Without Warning.
So if you want to give that a read.
Yeah, no, it's it's kind of weird having done that. I always forget about the fact I've written that. But yeah, so I wrote a book called Without Warning, and yeah, it's a really interesting thing writing a book, especially when you're as young as I was. I wrote it in 2012, so I was like 32. And you're writing like a life story book. So yeah, there she is. Yeah, it's a really out there. It's the out there experience trying to put it all down. But I think when I wrote it, hopefully, if anyone does take the time to read it or look into it, what I tried to do with it, so that I guess you get a little bit of an insight, was I wanted to write from the point of view that my mind was at in all of these sort of complex times, when different things were happening. So there's some in it that you like should read it. Hopefully you read it and go, man, that guy is a real asshole. Like, well, listen to that cocky idiot. And that the different parts, I think that is literally I wanted to be as honest about where my head was at in different places as possible. I got my parents both wrote a part. My sister wrote a bit about when she found out. I could only get 3 lines through that. Like when they sent me the draft, I didn't read anyone else's bits that they'd written because I didn't want them to affect what I wrote. But yeah, I only got like sort of 3 lines through what she wrote, and I haven't read any of the other bits that went into it. I just trusted my editor with it. But I wanted to make it as honest of a recount of the different parts, especially of the hard bits, as possible. And sort of, I guess, show what parts of your personality can shine through when you're under there. So it's sometimes, like, I think the hard bits, well, everyone imagines they're hard. There's a difference between them being hard and what they actually do to you. So I kind of wanted that to shine through when we wrote that. So hopefully it did. I mean, I've got friends who I play golf with who've read the book who are like, man, you're a cock. I'm like, why? They go, well, when you were in hospital, that had happened. This. I'm like, oh, sorry, man. I just had my body torn apart. Sorry. That's what I said. That's what I did.
Fucking cut you some slack, man. Jesus.
Yeah, give the guy a break, will you?
Yeah. It's funny as well. Like when I got told that, I was kind of looking at the guy going, I wonder whether he's just jealous that I wrote it.
If your life was made into a movie, who would you want to play it?
Oh,
snap! Gotcha.
Ooh,
Caught you out.
We'd actually spoken about doing something like that. I don't.
If you can't say, you don't have to say.
No. It's not that I can't say. See, I don't know.
I'm trying to think now. I'm kind of getting maybe kind of, do you know John Krasinski? Kind of vibe, maybe. The guy kind of similar, kind of. I don't know.
I'm kind of seeing a Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
I was the biggest fan of everything Matt Damon ever.
Oh my god!
Born Identity and Fantasy, I can almost quote both those movies the whole way. But I never want to say, yeah, he'd be great, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
You guys looking
It's the
pretty
hairstyle.
similar.
There's a uncanny resemblance there that would. He's a really good actor, man. I really like his stuff. Yeah,
He's absolutely
he's
brilliant.
awesome.
I think
of a
he
dude.
does.
I'm trying to think,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
he would probably, he'd be it. He would kill it.
I think
We
the best
need
one I've seen
Just need
recently.
someone less talented. They've got to make it look awkward the way that it would be, just so that it's like me. Yeah.
I think the best one I've seen so far, or lately now, is Jamie Foxx going to be playing Tyson, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be
I'm
good.
looking forward to that.
Yeah,
I can
he
see
looks
that.
weird. You see
They have
that
a resemblance
picture?
anyway.
Yeah, he did the Have you heard the little interview he does where he talks like Mike?
No,
No.
Yeah,
sadly we can't pull that up. Was it the Joe Rogan podcast by any chance?
I don't think it was a podcast. I'm not 100% sure, but he was talking about his preparation for the movie, and he went over into the character like it was I think it was in a Skype or a Zoom format, and you just hear the way that he's talking, and like he's already just becoming Mike. Like I believed that it was him.
Yeah.
I mean, Jamie Foxx is amazing, so it's not a shock that he's that good. But like, yeah, it had me so quickly because, to Mike Tyson's so unique. There aren't many people that can be as ferocious as he is in the ring and then sort of sound the way that he does. The pictures don't fit the same. But then
I can understand. It's a bit like Beckham. David Beckham's kind of exactly the same. He looks very tough, and then he kind of speaks like a girl.
Yeah. And they interviewed. We did the Invictus Games when they were in Australia. I worked on the media team with it, and David Beckham was over for it. So they did an interview with him, and everyone in our media team, there were like 4 of us. I was never going to get it. I was like the lowest ranked on that totem pole. But like the journo who got it, he was rehearsing his questions because it's Beckham, and he's walking around rehearsing for like a good hour, like to the point where when he got there, everyone we were all huddled around one of these screens, just looking at it, going, okay, let's see what he does. And then I kind of thought the same thing. I was like, I kind of expect his voice to be a little bit husky and kind of that touch tougher.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, he's a big deal, that guy. Like there aren't many people, especially like to have crushed it in the US the way that he has. Like you're literally anything that goes near him is worth more the next day. Like it's crazy. I mean the guy's out of this world.
And he was all right at the footy, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anyone who can move to the States and do it with that. I mean, to me, football's never really been, like, I guess soccer football has never been as huge of a thing in Australia. Like, it's got a decent following, like a big following, but never anything that I paid too much attention to. So I only really got to see, like, the pinnacle moments that he had. So, yeah, but apparently he's quite the player.
He's all right, but he is. I mean, he got a good goal, and he got like winning goal or something. I don't know. I'm too young.
From halfway.
Yeah, he's good. Oh yeah, respect Beckham.
Is he in the same conversation as like the Messis, the Ronaldo?
No.
Yeah.
Nowhere close.
When I was on the snowboarding team, I had no idea who Lionel Messi was.
Really?
Right?
Mad. Yeah, Lionel Messi, yeah. Jesus.
I had no idea. So we had this guy who's he's from San Sebastian in Spain, and his name was Aitor Puertas. He's the nicest guy ever. But I said, "Oh, so you're Spanish?" And he goes, "No, I am Basque." And I'm like, "What's?"
Oh yeah.
Basque, and he's like, "Basque is a region." And then he starts like explaining that whole process, and so we're sort of like getting to know each other and what makes us tick and that sort of stuff. And he said, he's what Messi is this, and I'm like, what's Messi?
Isn't it Basque and?
It was actually kind of funny when you look up Lionel Messi for some reason, but Beckham is there. which is kind of funny. He's like just kind of
yeah.
peeking over there all the way in the corner.
I don't know who Gareth Bale is either.
Bale, such a legend. Jesus Christ. He played for this English team called Tottenham, and he was like a sub for so many years. And then they brought him on for a game, and he scored like 2 or 3 goals. And then he came like, I think it was 4th or 5th. And then Real Madrid, who were like this big Spanish team, they'd be like number 2 in the world. They offered him a place, and he went.
Oh wow!
He left England, went to go live in Spain, and I think pretty sure Ronaldo bought him a house right next to his. Ronaldo's like top class. He'd be like Lionel Messi kind of. Him and Messi have always been like debated whether it's like the best footballers kind of thing.
Yeah. I've seen middle of it, and like Messi scored more goals in like a season than guys have in their career.
Yeah,
It's like I see some of the stuff about it, but it's not. I think like because the EPL, I mean, the Premier League is probably more followed than the Euro. Is it the Euro League?
the Europa, yeah.
Yeah, with the Europa, I think with EPL is more popular in Australia. I think a lot of people have like a sort of follow from that, whereas like I think you've got to have family roots that are in Europe somewhere to sort of follow the type of footy that they do over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's never been a huge thing on my radar.
Mm.
I can't run, so it's one of those things I can't do it, so I don't really know. But on the same hand, I like rugby league. I really like it.
Mm. Your neighbours, New Zealand, they're not too bad at the old rugby now, I'll be honest with you. The All Blacks, those guys are scary, you know.
Oh man, they bring it up every single conversation you have.
Mm.
Every single convo to be how good are you at rugby? But like rugby, because like rugby league and rugby union, we call things weird things down here. But yeah, that's it, like two so different sports. But I always associated rugby union with like private schools.
Uh-huh.
People who play rugby union probably were on the rowing team type thing. And I don't come from that type of background. So it's never been a huge thing on my radar. And everyone from New Zealand, they just live and breathe it. So you play cricket against them or you go over and snowboard. That's the first thing to talk about. And that or the fact that an Australian guy bowled underarm. But yeah.
Right, man. It's like a 2:30 in the morning, and sure.
Yeah. I think it's our
At least we're
bedtime.
not starting in 20 minutes.
What'd you say?
At least we're not starting in 20 minutes.
You know what? That's a good point. You know, so I got to
Yeah,
be up
we
for
were supposed
7.
to do it at 2 o'clock in the morning, but then me and Thomas said, "We're not going to make it. We're not going to survive this." And yeah,
Be like 4:30. Be finishing in an hour.
Yeah,
We probably would have wrapped it up quicker. You would have just been cutting my answers off a bit more. It's like, all right.
yeah, but this way we had more energy, got
Yeah.
to have better conversations.
Yeah.
And,
This has
Yeah.
definitely been one of the best
Far away.
podcasts. Jesus, man, it's been so good.
yeah, no, it's been really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, if people want to find you, they can find you on Instagram or Facebook, just looking up your name.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, man, we want to thank you so much for getting on. You've been great.
Yeah,
Man, thanks for having us, boys. It's really cool to chat to some lads that are across the pond a little bit. So
yeah. We're
If
across the
we're
pond.
in New Wales, man, we'll come visit you. You know that.
You ever in Ireland, give us a shout.
We'll go for a game of golf.
Sure.
and I will for sure, 100%. You guys produce Rory McIlroy. We've got to take a hat off.
Perfect.
Right,
Right.
man. You keep
You
safe.
take it
man.
handy. Thanks for getting on.
Right.
And don't be strangers. We appreciate
Cheers,
it.
boys. Okay.
Chat to you, man.
Good luck.
Cheers, boys.